Hey everyone, today we're going to look at Module E, which is preparing your informative speech. So now that you've looked at what informative speaking is, and you've done the background work to researching it, you get to take a look at how are we going to get this thing ready? How do we take it from a pile of research and make it into something that sparkles and shines and is awesome and everyone wants to listen to? So there's actually a process to that, and we're going to train you how to do it. So what you're doing in this for objectives is, again, demonstrating ethical speaking and listening skills, because you're not only going to be speaking, but you're going to be hearing other people speak. You're improving your communication skills as you develop this idea and you talk about it with others, as well as your actual presentation. You're looking again at elements of audience analysis. You're discussing what you think will work and what won't, and thinking through that. You're still in the research process, although on the tail end of it, you really have kind of made it to a sweeter spot by now, because you've done the hard work of research and you've done the hard work of starting to think through things, and you get to start to put things together. And then you're going to look at the effective use of technology as you put all this stuff together, critical thinking, and teamwork. So very similar objectives to the last two units, but they do manifest in a little bit more research organization here. So the speech ladder is a very heavy thing right now in how you're working, and you're doing things like working on your outlines at this point and putting research in an organized fashion together. Let's take a look in more depth at what's inside this module. The first thing is you're going to analyze the speeches, remember, that we did back in Module C. And so one thing I want to point out to you guys, we usually have you upload your speech in two places, and this is why. You're going to want to see your peers' speeches and comment on those for credit here. And those you see on the discussion board. And then the actual speech itself has to be tied to a rubric. So that goes into the assignment box. So you should have posted your speech in both places. If you did not, you need to go back and make sure that that's cleared up. Also, if you were late on this, then your peers cannot evaluate your speech. So you need to make sure you're posting your speeches on time. That can really create problems for other people in your class. And it also denies you the chance to have people watch you and get feedback from your friends in class. Our students typically report that this is one of the favorite aspects of the course. Now, if you're in a seated class, you may not do this. It's quite likely that your instructor will have done this in class as you listened to the All About Me speeches or the introduction speeches. So you may have a different process. Your teacher may tell you to do something differently in this box to get the rubrics to open up and everything. But for those of you that aren't in class and are online only, this is a very critical component of the public speaking process. Then there's another video response journal, and what she's talking about is how to cite your sources. This can be really tricky when you're speaking. We don't necessarily do it the same way as when we write. As a speaker, I've kind of got to say, according to Williams, this, da, da, da. And so learning what parts you have to say verbally and where to get your sources and how to put them together is a little tricky. And so Ms. Price does a really great job at guiding you through that process. And then this is kind of a fun one. I keep waiting for it to date itself up, but it's not quite there yet. She's actually going to talk to you about what research was like in the old days, or that might have been in the video before. But I think it's in the old days. And it's talking about how to source things properly, which is very important, not just for this class, but in the future. You really need to know this. A lot of times students get in trouble for plagiarism, and they're not trying to plagiarize at all. They just don't know how to source something or cite it correctly. And so this is something that's very critical to you speaking professionally and academically in the future. So it's part of that personal responsibility core objective that we're looking at. And then you're looking at your video response journal with Dr. McGarity. He's looking at starting to think through that audience component and what you need to do to analyze that audience and understand them better. And then the last one is a video response journal that is I'm going to look at how you write a thesis statement using an old presentation I gave years ago. And so we're going to take a look at that. And thesis statement writing is a little different when you're working in speech than when you're working in English. We will say things, and it's perfectly acceptable in speech to say, I'm going to tell you about these three things. And then you say what the three things are. And the reason that that's okay to do in speech and not in a paper is that your audience can't look back visually at what you've written out to say. They're relying on your voice to tell them where they're at in the speech. We call that signposting as well. So you're going to give a preview statement that's also a thesis statement that's looking directly at these 3 points and what you want them to make. And you're learning to be clear and concise. Now, I just want to take a second and say that when you're writing a typical English paper, you're not going to have that kind of thesis statement. They're going to be a little more indirect and softer with that approach. However, if you're writing an essay question for a history teacher, or you're taking the STAR test, some of you that are younger, and you're doing that expository writing prompt, if you can use keywords like we're going to teach you to do, and you can say, hey, we're going to take a look at 3 things that caused the Civil War, and then you punch that out. Here's, the first thing, blah, 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 blah. The second thing was this. The third thing was that. In those contexts, those kinds of teachers actually like that kind of writing. So keep in mind that what you're learning in English is good grammar and composition and excellent stuff. But sometimes you do need a more direct, concise approach, and that's what this is training you for. So for your non-English classes, especially science teachers, man, they are picky about wanting things specific. So get in there and let this be a good practice time for you. And then you're going to start to look at how you're going to organize your speech. What do you put in what order? So that's going hand in hand again with your speech ladder. So that's very important. And then we're going to look at attention devices. Basically, a speech is not quite like a paper. You've got to open it up with a Shazam. You've got to be a little exciting, or people aren't going to want to listen to you. So English still has like the hook, but you can start it off a little more directly. You're going to look at different kinds of attention devices. I will be honest with you, the one that goes over best usually is telling a personal story or a narrative story that you have heard about someone, and trying to get the heart connected a little bit to what people are going to be experiencing from you. But there's some different kinds of attention devices, everything from quotes to jokes and things like that. So you're going to work hand in hand with your instructor on developing the perfect one for your speech. And then I do believe we are close to, yes, everything else now is in the speech ladder. So all your outlines and things you're doing are going to be there. So that is the end of Module E, and I will see you in Module F.